Today we're going to talk about the return of quarterly grading specials and PSA's return to a shocking announcement. They're going to be accepting economy level submissions for trading cards from people out there in the world. So let's talk about why that's important and how it can serve as a bellwether for the overall graded card aspect of the Pokemon trading card hobby. But before we do, let's roll that intro. Hey Gengar Gang, what is going on? My name is Ryan, this is the Analytic Gengar, and welcome to another video. In today's video, friends, we talk about PSA and some recent announcements they've made about the return of some of their most missed services over the past couple of years. Now, as usual, links to some of these pages will be down below. Today's video is not an article like I normally do. Instead, I'm just showing and discussing some of the items that are being announced on PSA, SGC, and CGC's websites. So make sure to check the link down below if you're interested in checking out any of these pages. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I just like to make the information easily accessible to you all. Of course, if you like today's video, definitely feel free to leave a like on the video, haha. It's the easiest way to help support the channel and get this video pushed out to other people via the YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you really enjoy my content, my channel, I definitely encourage you to go check out a few other videos. Some will be linked at the end card of this video. And hey, subscribe if you're not already to join the Gengar Gang. But with all that said, let's jump right on into today's topic, which is PSA's announcement that they will be doing economy level submissions now. So in case you are unaware, economy level submissions are some of the cheapest ways to get your trading cards graded. Aside from quarterly specials, which I will discuss in a minute, economy is basically the very bottom tier for submitting trading cards. Now, do bear in mind that there are several things that occur at the economy level. Normally, what you'll see is that they will restrict the type of card that you can submit. So obviously, you won't be submitting this Charizard Shadowless and grading it at PSA 10. If you do grade this card, I believe this card is at least a 5-figure card, so you will immediately get charged within that tier. But it's not terrible because at least you'll have the ability to access to $50 a card grading and more. I think that is a huge perk, especially if you can somehow find cards and want to grade cards that are within that bracket. Now, so that's the first thing. The second thing that I thought was really interesting is while I was on this page, I also noted PSA quarterly grading specials. Now, the last time that I saw a PSA quarterly grading special, it was during 2020. So that was quite a while ago. And right after that, PSA not only shut down because of the pandemic, but also then shut down again and stopped accepting new submissions. So basically, they turned off this part of the website where you could submit stuff and said, yeah, no, we are way too overcommitted. We need to get through the backlog. Now, that was its own big hoopla and thing, but PSA has slowly but surely opened their doors back up and accepted stuff. And these quarterly grading specials are another indicator of that. So, as you can see, although nothing here relates to Pokemon, and in the past there would have been a lot more, usually rotating categories of things like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, as well as a whole bunch of sports stuff, which is kind of their bread and butter. It's nice to see that, at least in some capacity, this stuff has returned. That means that at least the signed baseball guys are, there and they're ready and they're able to work. That means that any of these Hall of Fame specials, the folks who would grade this stuff are also there, are also available, and are also ready to work. So it's interesting because I think the grading specials are another indicator of PSA's ability to work. Now, what I specifically wanted to talk about is the trading card grading, because obviously if you look at the PSA website, you'll see that the trading card grading has actually become a pretty high level of their stuff. And obviously trading cards capture everything, right? Sports, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh! So, it makes sense that their card grading would be high up, but I think it's impressive because PSA started out as the sports authenticator. That's what the S stands for. And so to think that, front and center, you now have Magic and Pokemon pretty prominently featured, I think it's an indicator of how much the hobbies have grown and become a very known aspect of grading, trading cards. So, in terms of grading prices, here's what I wanted to bring to everybody's attention. So in the past, what we saw is that there was this regular bit, and that was about it, right? So you had kind of these three sections that I have highlighted on screen, and that was about the entirety of the options that you had. Now, $100 to grade a trading card is a lot of money, and a lot of people would argue the validity of this price. Now, as a result of PSA shutting their doors, as well as finally opening their doors back up, but at incredibly stupid prices, a lot of people said PSA is just being greedy, and we're gonna go to a different area. So we're gonna go to CGC, we're gonna go to SGC, we're gonna go quite literally anywhere else that isn't PSA to get our trading cards graded. Now, that was fine and dandy at the time. However, with PSA's slow and stable entry back into the, competitor's ring, it opens up an interesting question, and that is, what now? Bear in mind, a lot of trading card companies, and this is no shade at CGC, but a lot of trading card companies like CGC popped up at the opportune moment. The time when PSA was closed, and the time when PSA was not able to accept trading cards because they had a massive backlog. That's part of the reason why they were able to violently obtain and claw back a part of the market share that PSA pretty much always owned by itself. To be very frank, BGS owned a pretty decent sized market share, and PSA probably had the majority of the rest. I can imagine a few other smaller companies like SGC had some share, but honestly, PSA was the golden standard for years before CGC entered this market. And even then, CGC entered this market under turbulence, to say the least. So, interestingly enough, PSA had a pretty large share of the market, and closing their doors had a repercussion because a lot of grading companies popped up during the pandemic promising quick turnaround times and cheap prices, exactly what PSA couldn't do. In case you're curious, PSA ended up in that situation to begin with because for years they had been ignoring a backlog of cards. So basically they consistently saw increasing demand and made no significant investment to meet that demand. So they basically couldn't supply what they were being asked to supply, hence there was a bottleneck. Basically, too many cards were getting submitted, not enough cards were getting graded to minimize the stack that was building up in the back, and as a result, we ended up in a situation where PSA had a huge backlog of cards going into the pandemic. Then you ended up in a situation where not only did they have that huge stack of cards, now because of shutdowns related to the pandemic and public safety and public health awareness, they couldn't even grade cards. Then when they finally were able to open back up with mask mandates and things of the sort, they were limited because only a certain amount of people could work at a given time. So, long story short, PSA was woefully underprepared, and as a result, they had to basically say, hey, let's take all of these services away. You're not submitting anything. Finally, when they did come back, and this is the important part, they rolled out these three: regular, express, and super express. And the prices scared a lot of people away. A lot of people said, wow, those are very expensive prices, and that's just PSA being greedy. I have another theory, a different theory perhaps, and that is that this isn't about greed, at least primarily. It's also about price deterrence. So price deterrence is this idea that you can make something so stupid expensive that you're only ever going to do it if you're really that pressed to do so. So basically, for the normal consumer, grading a modern Pokemon card, which is something that PSA saw a lot of, was always an affordable and sensible option. Because again, at a point in time, you could grade the hit out of any given set at, $20 and then flip it for like $300-400. So of course, modern Pokemon cards were going to get submitted at that price point. So what they did was they raised the price point such that there's never going to be a situation that plays out where you're going to be able to now make a profit, because not only has the Pokemon market cooled off, but now the cost to grade that card is so much higher that the cost simply outweighs the opportunity for profit. All that said, if it stayed that way for the foreseeable future, I would agree that at that point, it's just being greedy, because PSA has now had an opportunity to make significant investments into their processing capabilities, and PSA has spent a lot of time and money hiring new people. PSA has also had more than enough time to work through a significant portion of their backlog. And so, if they had just kept these 3 tiers of service, one could argue they're now just being greedy. They now know that people are, willing to pay the price to get certain cards graded, and so they're totally comfortable with keeping the prices high. However, that's not what happened. Notice the presence of this 4th bucket now, so the economy bucket. Now it is locked behind a PSA Collectors Club membership, and this was, I admit, a bit of a greedy grab. So basically they are guaranteeing that they will have the ability to make a couple extra bucks off you. However, notice the price differential here. In terms of card grading prices, 50% off is a pretty significant number. And so when you go from 100 to 50, it's a pretty significant discount. And I think this speaks to another interesting aspect. They are slowly but surely opening the floodgates of card grading again, and I think this is very important. So, what does that mean? Well, only certain people were willing to grade cards at $100. However, take 50% off that, and now tell me $50. Well, there's a lot more people that are probably willing to spend $50 on a card. And yeah, you have to buy the membership, but just chalk that up to what it is. So, this means they are now going to see another level of demand for their services at this $50 per card level. And so they're constantly guaranteeing themselves new and additional business. It doesn't surprise me, frankly, if within the next couple months we see a quote-unquote quarterly special where you'll now be able to take advantage of a quarterly special of $25 a card. And although that is slowly but surely moving us back towards pre-pandemic pricing, the real question that you probably came here to get answered is, how low do you think these prices are going to go? Or are these prices going to stay as high as they are on screen? I think that prices are going to go lower. Prices are going to return to pre-pandemic levels, and that's just my best guess based on everything I am seeing right now. So, what makes me think that? And I realize that that is a very controversial topic because a lot of people have argued that prices will stay high. I do note, however, that many of the same people who argue that grading prices will stay high were the same exact people telling you that all Pokemon TCG product will never sell for MSRP again because of the pandemic and because of increased demand. And I do want to point out that aside from Evolving Skies, most sets are selling at or actually below MSRP, and many different products and items are sold at significant discount on top of that. So people have been wrong before, and I think it's just silly to think that in a world this complex, that prices are just going to stay elevatedly high for perpetuity. Now, where do I think these prices are going? Well, in the short run, we look to SGC and we look to CGC to find that answer. SGC remained pretty consistent throughout the pandemic, at least to the best of my knowledge. And you can see here their price schedule. So what they do is they tier it not only by value, but also by the amount of turnaround time that you want. So if you want 1 to 2 days, you can pay the price you want, However, if you want more reasonable times, like 20 to 25 days, which is their longest wait time, I might add, you do have a $30 price tag per card. So at a minimum, we know that there is a market alternative that exists at $30. The next and probably equally important site to check would be CGC. Now, CGC, my thoughts and opinions aside, does have some really interesting tiers on pricing. So their lowest is the bulk, which I guess word-wise is less than their economy. However, I think you get the idea. You can submit a large volume of cards with a relatively low max value for a very cheap price and a longer turnaround time. So basically, if you don't care about getting these cards back today, you can take advantage of a very good price, assuming the card is within a certain range. Now, the bulk has honestly been one of CGC's biggest selling points up to date. And the main reason that is because in the vacuum that was created during the pandemic, CGC's readiness to take some of the market share away from some of the bigger players at the time meant that CGC could really maximize the ability to, get some cards and grade some cards and get their name out there. And I think that was very powerful for them. And of course, there are these insanely high, wacky ones that are up here. Obviously, you have like the subgrades, which you can tack on to basically any of the tiers, blah, blah, blah. What is interesting, however, is that I think this right here tells us everything we need to know about where price pressure will send competition in the future. So do bear in mind, right now, PSA is saying for the low price of $50 a card, you get a $1,000 card graded. If we flip back over here, we see that the standard 15-day turnaround time for a $1,000 card is $35. So at a minimum, PSA's economy grading would be the equivalent, or theoretically could be worth $35. Now you could turn around and say, well, Ryan, you're paying for PSA's name, right? So you're paying the extra $15 to have your card graded actually with PSA, not CGC, to which I would normally argue, yeah, sure. However, here's where the other part of this video comes into play. This is a very expensive price, and all of these prices, and by the way, there are some hilarious prices on this, right? The premium options go up to $10,000 a card. A lot of what you're seeing on screen right now was driven by a very exploding market for trading cards. A lot of people will spend a lot of money. A lot of crypto people who made a lot of money. A lot of stock market people who made a lot of money flooded our hobby with money. That translated over to increased demand, which meant PSA could increase their prices and get away with it. However, if you're looking at the macro economy, not just Pokemon cards, but in general, the economy as a whole, there are many reports out there that say we are headed towards a longer term period of inflation, stagflation, and potentially even a recession here in the United States. Now, the reason I bring that up is because the United States typically serves as a bellwether for the overall economic conditions of the world, plus or minus a few exceptions. And I think what's also incredibly important to note is that for the most part, I think the trading card markets have cooled down significantly from their highest period of time. And we see this play out a bunch of times, right? There are tons of really good articles out there and even price points out there that support this theory. Just look at recent sale prices on some of your favorite trading cards, and you'll notice that many of them sold for a pandemic high and then came down a pretty significant number. And you're seeing that play out across everything else, including stocks, cryptocurrencies, home values, everything of the sort. So it's super interesting because I think if you're looking at and considering the macro economy, one important thing that you learn that you wouldn't otherwise notice is that the world seems to be cooling off. And if the world is cooling off, people are not going to have as much money around to do things like buy and sell and grade Pokemon cards. What does that mean? Well, the law of supply and demand says demand will drop. When demand drops, PSA is going to have made a lot of investments in grading trading card processing that they're now going to have idle capacity for. Idle capacity means they're not utilizing the full scale of their resources. And that's because they built and bought a lot of stuff to be able to grade a ton more Pokemon cards and other trading cards, obviously. And because of slowing economic conditions, people just aren't going to be submitting as many. That's just basic economics. During times of financial woe or worry, there'll be less money spent on superfluous goods, meaning a lot more people will be focused on their debts, on certain specific things, and whatever luxuries they do buy will be far and few in between. You won't see people with tons of money just tossing it at trading cards, because trading cards aren't as profitable, and you might be forced to wait in the long run for the trading card market to really kind of explode again before you're really able to take advantage of any profit potential that these trading cards have. So, as a result, PSA is just going to be sitting there twiddling their thumbs, and I guarantee you they're not going to want to do that. As a result, it doesn't surprise me then if they drop this price down to $35 per card. And that might even be in the short run, right? What we might see is that a quarterly special, as I mentioned, might half this to $25. To say, hey, if you want, submit 100 cards at our quarterly special, and then we'll do it for $25. And then CGC is going to say, oh, word, you said 25? Fine, we're going to drop this to 25 standard. We're going to push economy to 15. We're going to push bulk to 10. And then PSA is going to come back and, try to beat them out. And this is where price competition will come into play. Again, at the end of the day, barring a few things that have probably genuinely gone up in value, including raw materials like acrylic, which many of these grading companies use to slab their cards, not much has changed fundamentally about grading trading cards from a industrial point of view. So realistically speaking, the price increases that you're seeing on all of these websites are really just related to the demand that these grading companies saw. And again, part of it was, we're going to increase the price to stop people from submitting every stupid card they want. However, when things flip-flop and they have idle capacity, they really don't care what they're grading anymore. And it may narrow their profits a little bit, but if they can do a $15 quarterly special and grade 300 of your trading cards in bulk that are all valued under $1,000, it still keeps them in business, keeps their capacity, relatively full, and makes use of all the investments they made during the most recent trading card explosion in popularity. So, I believe as a result of that, it's very likely that we're going to see a combination of encouraging business and price encouragement, meaning we lower the price to encourage you to sell the cards or to send the cards in, to be the main reason why we see grading card prices at PSA continue to drop. And it wouldn't surprise me if, as a result of PSA doing it, other companies try to compete with them and lower their prices as well. Do I think prices will ever come back to what they were directly pre-pandemic? Well, that'll really depend on a few things clearing up, including whether or not acrylic's price will permanently increase, or if there are certain other aspects of the grading card process that have fundamentally changed. But it wouldn't surprise me if most things stay normal, that we see the return of the $10 graded trading card at any of these or other grading companies in the future. But with all that said, friends, thanks again for checking out another video. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, definitely feel free to leave a like on the video. And hey, if you're not already, consider subscribing to join the Gengar Gang, as I mentioned a little bit earlier today. Let me know your thoughts down below on this topic. I know a lot of people are either one side or the other side of this argument, so it can be really fun to see how, those very civil and nicely worded conversations play out down below in the comments. But other than that, friends, thanks again for checking out another video. I hope you guys are having an amazing Saturday, and we will talk soon. Peace.